Hi, this is Karen Duncan, and I'm with Dawn Friedland from New York. And she's been a clinician for almost 3 years using brain trainer equipment. So, Dawn, if you'd like to tell me a little bit about yourself and perhaps give us some information about what led you to do neurofeedback in general.
Sure. Thanks, Karen. I'm a mom of 3 children, and I am also a licensed clinical social worker by trade. The reason why I actually started looking for something was actually to help my oldest son, who's ADD-esque, I'd like to call him.
Hmm.
He needed some help. He was struggling. He was having executive functioning issues. He wasn't doing well with reading comprehension, some behavior issues, stuff like that going on with him. And as a therapist, I look for different things to try to help him. I brought him to regular therapy. We tried some hypnosis. I worked on some things, just taking different classes, trying different strategies. And then I found out about neurofeedback. And I searched and searched for different companies. There were several that I was interested in, and I made some phone calls, and I did go to some seminars and things like that in the city to see what other programs there were. And then I stumbled across your program on the website, thank goodness. And that is kind of how I got started to work with him. However, that's not what ended up happening.
To work with Pete Van Dusen.
To work with Pete Van Dusen.
Yes.
I actually had called Pete to get some information about the program. He called me back, and he was very wonderful, explaining to me how it works, what his system was, how his was different than all the other systems that were out there. And I really liked the philosophy of Brain Trainer versus the philosophy of the other big neurofeedback companies.
Very cool. So what prompted you to actually start to include this in your therapy practice?
The philosophy of Brain Trainer is, when you first get the program, which I didn't realize at the time, was you get supposed to learn how to do it on yourself. And at first I was kind of like, oh, I don't really want to do this on myself. How am I going to do this? This is so, frustrating. But it ended up being much better than anticipated. And I had no expectations because I never did neurofeedback before. So I had no idea what to expect or how it would work. So I was kind of open about it. The first thing that happened was I finally started sleeping, and I haven't slept since I had my first son. So I didn't sleep for 15 years at that point. So the fact that I finally got some sleep was pretty amazing. I said, all right, let's keep doing this and let's keep seeing what happens. I'm the kind of person, really high stress, kind of keep running, can't really sit still, 2-speed, stop and go. What ended up happening from the neurofeedback, I was finally able to sit down on the couch for a minute and go, all right, I could do this, and not feel like guilty about it, not feel bad about it, not feel like I should be doing something, should be doing this, should be doing that, all the should haves, all the anxiety, and it slowed me down. Now, some people may not think that's good. The reason that was good for me was I would get myself so worked up, I would get so sick that I would be sick for 2 months, 3 months, and I have a really hard time getting better. And then I wouldn't be able to go to work. The kids would get sick, and it was just always a big downward spiral that would happen. So once I worked on it with myself, I said, oh, this is interesting. I kind of need to, practice this some more. So I did have a caseload of some patients at the time. I was working with seniors at the time. And in my practice, I had 2 or 3 that I said, hey, I'm kind of doing this new thing. Would you mind if we worked on this and see how it affects you and gives me some time to learn, my skill set? So they were all open for it. And again, the same thing happened with them. They were able to sleep. They were able to have less anxiety, less depression, things like that. And then from there, in my private practice, I also started having some kids that were seeing other clinicians. And then when they're finding out what's going on with the neurofeedback, they wanted more information, and they went, oh, could you work on this with my kid, because it was helping your kid with the attention and the anxiety and the focus. And sure, why not? Let's bring it on. So then we started working with those kids, and it was amazing to see with the kids, the transformation was almost quicker and easier because they have no expectations at all. And they're not really judging as much as a grown-up would judge, what was going on within themselves or what I was doing, or if it was a real product or not. So the kids were very open, and it was amazing to see how quick the shift in the kids would happen. So with the kids, the teenagers I was working with mostly, you would see such a shift in their level of focus, their level of attention. They're doing better in schoolwork. And one of the things that as a therapist, I enjoyed to see the most was just the change in their esteem. the change in the way, especially some of the girls I saw felt about themselves and with the boys, and they just had a better sense of self-worth after doing the neurofeedback, which I really enjoyed to see that shift with the teenage girls for sure. So that's kind of how it all came about.
That's very exciting. It's really rewarding when you see that kind of stuff working
Definitely.
so well. So can you tell me a little bit about what the process was and how you went through that, and you know, how comfortable that was for you?
Sure. So at first, it was a little frustrating, I'm not going to lie, but only a little frustrating. It's a new skill set, and any skill set for anybody, you can't expect to go from A to Z. So if you're going into this thinking you're going to jump in and know everything like Karen and Pete and Ra, who know everything about this at this point, that's not going to happen. You have to go slow and steady and just know that they're with you every step of the way to do whatever you need and learn whatever you need to learn. So that's fantastic. So the first thing that we did is, okay, you got to learn how to use this on yourself. So I think the most important part was the foundations program that they have. So that you guys have, the website has more information than anybody could imagine. So when you go on that website, and any questions that you have could be answered very easily there by doing the foundations program. So when you first work that program, everything is laid out. It makes perfect sense as you're going through it to learn how to do it. Then on top of that, if you choose to, which you should choose to, is you have the supervisory sessions where the supervisor knows how to do it and knows how to get you to learn the skills that you need in order to do this. So was how it went along. And then you just become, after you do it on yourself, then you're going to practice on, who you need to use it on, or other people, or if you want to use it as a business, you could bring it into your work, or if you want to use it on your family, your friends. Everybody should have neurofeedback.
So you mentioned that you had sort of looked into other programs, neurofeedback programs. Could you tell me a little bit about ours versus theirs, and what you noticed or what your impressions were?
Sure. So the other programs that I had looked into, I found very confusing and very overwhelming. And the price tag was ridiculous. You have to sell your firstborn in order to go into any of those companies. The thing that, when you're first looking at it, it's like, oh, this looks great. Look, it's all these bells and whistles, and you have pretty brains on the screen, and oh, isn't that wonderful? But the thing about it is you don't understand what it is that you're doing, and you don't understand what it is that this company is then feeding back to you. A lot of these other companies had it that, okay, we're going to train to average. We're going to train to normal. And when I was talking about my son, when I was first trying to find a program for him, I don't want him to be average. I didn't want him to be normal, because he's a smart guy with all these gifts and talents, that I was concerned that if I now train him to normal or average, what's he going to turn into? So that was a concern for me. So that was a question that I would ask any company that I went to, where are you getting your protocols from? Where are you getting what we're doing to the brain from? Who's coming up with these ideas? Oh, well, we have a database that we get based on everybody's information that they send in from all these people. So, okay, that's great. You don't know who these people are that have information to send to the database. So what I'm trying to say is, the way these other companies did it is you would gather your information, send your information to the company would then spit back to you all your protocols, all the things that you're supposed to do to help this person. And then what would happen is you would have this pretty little package, but you don't understand why you have this pretty package. You don't understand why that's going to help a person. You don't understand what's going on with this person. So then if things aren't going right when you're doing it, or things aren't going, I shouldn't say right, going in a certain direction when you're doing it, then how would you know how to go in a different direction, how you're doing it? So I found that very frustrating. So I think when I spoke to Pete, that again was one of my first questions. How do you guys get the information? How do you decide what you're going to train for this person? So I liked what he said. He basically said, you're training normal for that person. You're not going through a big database of everybody else. You're training for whatever that person needs at the time. And I really liked that. And that made me less nervous about messing with my kid's brain, because that was a big concern for me. The cost factor is also prohibitive. A lot of these companies, like I said before, are very expensive. And it wasn't just a one-time fee. They then charge you every month to get their information, and every month to get this, and then you have an update and you have an upgrade. So it was a lot of fees. And if you're running this as a business, Yeah, that might work, but that's still very expensive. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted more hands-on approach. I wanted people that were approachable. I wanted people that you could contact if something wasn't going well. So that's the amazing thing about working with you guys. The price was just spot on right. Absolutely right. Very affordable. And you do not have to pay a monthly fee to stay doing what you want to do. You pay for the product, you get the product. You could choose not to do supervision, which is a very bad idea. The supervision package is ridiculously, the course is perfect. It's ridiculously low, I should say. And it's very affordable. So to me, it was a no-brainer. Once I started talking to Pete and learning, the philosophy of it, to me, it was a no-brainer.
For me, one of the most compelling things about Brain Trainer is the fact that we teach you how to look at the brain and to understand the brain so that you can actually decide how you're going to train it and then make adjustments if you need to. That's one of the fascinating parts about that I love about it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. It helps you to learn your skill set. You're just not a tech doing something on the side and not understand what you're doing. It's another skill set that you have that you could add to if you want to be a practitioner and run it as a business. It's something else that you could add to your repertoire, or even just something you want to use at home. Either way, it works.
What about your feelings about how easy it was compared to other sort of systems? You were talking about earlier about big words and complicated, information that just didn't seem to make sense.
Yeah, when you looked at their data, if you go online, you looked at their websites, or even I had some of the companies send me, how it works and their packages, and they, it's like you could put lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig. They try to wrap it up and make it look all pretty, but that doesn't mean it is. Pete uses big words too, but when you guys use the stuff, it makes sense. It's more something that you can use a better application. It's practical application, I guess is the better word to use. When you're doing the TQ7 assessment and you're trying to figure this out, you guys have a whole system on the website called Foundations Training, I think it's called. And you can just go through it step by step and it just breaks it down for you. And if you have problems with your computer, there's Ra right there to help you figure it out. And if you have problems with a protocol, or you don't understand what you're doing, you need supervision, there's Karen, there's Pete, there's other master trainers that are able to help you do what you need to do.
Well, we're glad to help. So why don't you give me a little bit of sort of your perspective on how this has been a different option in your therapy practice to help your clients compared to other modalities?
Definitely. So as a licensed clinical social worker, I'm big on empowering people and finding other ways to help people, because everybody needs something different. I always say people are just like snowflakes, no two are alike. So different things work for different people. I personally found that talk therapy wasn't the best therapy. To me, I find that sometimes you could talk till you're blue in the face and that doesn't always shift things. I was huge on hypnosis. That's one of the skills that I have. I work with hypnosis. I work with energy work. And the thing about neurofeedback that I liked is some people don't want to talk. They just don't want to rehash whatever trauma they were going through. They don't want to talk about what their problems were. They don't want you to ask them about their mother anymore or their childhood. They're done. They've done that before. And the thing that I liked about the neurofeedback was this was a perfect way, especially with kids that don't want to sit and talk to you, that you could help them in a way that they don't realize that they're getting help, but they're getting help. And it's shifting brain patterns for them that they've had all this time. When you work with hypnosis, you talk about limiting beliefs and different structures, the way you interpret things. And then you have to go through this process, and it gets down to the deeper levels of your consciousness when you do hypnosis. And you are kind of reprogramming the brain in a way as well, and forming new neural pathways and stuff like that. So to me, the neurofeedback resonated with me because it really reminded me of working with the hypnosis that I really enjoy. You're able to get to the deeper issues, the root of the issues. The thing that I learned the most during neurofeedback, which I never put two and two together, is that your brain is in charge of everything. Like you actually think like your mind and you're in charge. You're not in charge. Your brain is in charge. And that's a little scary, when you don't realize that and you start thinking about it. Oh my God, I'm not making these decisions. Oh my God, I'm not reacting because I want to. Oh, wow. There's a part of you that's doing all these things that you don't know about. So to me, I call it the subconscious. So to me, the neurofeedback is the part that also gets to the subconscious, just like the hypnosis does, but in a way that nobody has to talk if they don't want to talk. They could sit and relax and listen to music or watch their favorite show, which is, the kids love to do stuff like that. And it gets people to cooperate more, I think, sometimes with therapy, especially the kids. So for me, when I'm working with people, I do the neurofeedback. Sometimes I will throw in some hypnosis that day, depending on what's going on. And sometimes I'll still talk to process stuff, that's going on with them. And I know that you guys do that too as practitioners. You don't just leave people hanging. You guys are amazing like that. And it's important to combine it all together. I think that really completes the skill set for people. So that's why I think it's just another tool in your toolbox to add to your practice.
That's great. Well, and one of the things that we always remind our clients and our trainers that we're not training the mind, we're training the brain. So sometimes the mind gets in the way. You have to push it out of the way and just allow for the brain to be trained.
Yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow. For sure.
Yeah.
Another thing that I found that I really liked about your program, other than these other programs, was the way you guys do the brain training. Your philosophy is whole brain training, which means you do it in a certain order. It's almost like going to the gym and you exercise different parts of your body instead of just doing your arm like Popeye, and now Popeye only has one big arm. So you train the brain in different areas, in different ways, to make sure that it's balanced. So these other programs don't do it with balance. They'll do it over here, and then they'll stay here the whole time. And then the symptoms move over here, and then you go, oh, now we got to train over here. And I've heard people from other programs that they'll go for 40 sessions training one area, and then all of a sudden they think they're done with the neurofeedback, and now they have to go again for another 40 sessions for another area. And it's almost somebody's way of having job security to make sure that the client keeps coming, which isn't very, a good way of doing business. You're there to help the client and heal them, not to keep them around so you can keep giving them services and getting paid. So I really enjoyed the philosophy of the whole brain training.
That's terrific. Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and information with us.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Karen.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Anytime.